thank you for joining me for another one of these short videos to support other autistic individuals. So I'm doing these shorter videos while I prepare these bigger ones that I talked about earlier on in a different video. So I'm going to talk about anxiety in this one, and I'm going to give an example of something that I experienced myself and also share a very, very simple idea that I suddenly thought of a few months ago that is actually working for me, amazingly. It needs to be repeated, so repetition is good. So I have to say that anxiety is a massive, massive subject. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, anything like that. I'm a professional musician with autism, but I do know that anxiety is a gigantic subject and it can get very, very nasty. It's obviously, in my experience, it's in the mind, but it has a knock-on effect with the body. And with me being autistic, I'm sure that many of you out there will identify with this. When I experience anxiety myself, as soon as I am able to sort of stop it from getting worse, it takes me longer to recover. And I think this is probably a problem with autism, because if I were non-autistic, I think I'd be able to sort of dampen it down and recover quite a lot quicker. But because I'm autistic, it's obviously different, isn't it? So there are many things that can cause anxiety. Many, many things. I think anxiety has many symptoms, and I think that there are many ways to confront it, deal with it, towards at least reducing the anxiety, possibly even beating it. I think it's possible to beat anxiety. I think it's possible to beat depression. I think that we don't have to live with these things. Easier said than done. Okay, so what I experienced quite a few months ago, this was probably 6 months ago, I tend to keep a diary. So I like to think that I keep my life in order, which is it's a good feeling. And I write nice things down so I can look back through the pages in this diary, and certain things make me feel good. That's always a good thing to do. So, but I also plan particular days. So I'd planned this day the night before, and because I'd been in the house for quite a long time, I decided I need to leave the house. So the target was to leave the house, go somewhere, use my phone connected to the internet. I do not have an iPad, not yet. I think I'm old-fashioned, I think I'm a bit behind, not that that matters, and research autism. And the plan was to research a particular trait of autism. So I went to a cafe with my notebook, my phone, and I knew that the internet in this cafe has a reliable connection. I ordered myself a nice piece of chocolate cake. I always have to have a cup of hot water. The hot water's really good, I think it keeps me going. And an oat milk cappuccino, that's a recent discovery that I've made. I think that they're really good. And so I sat there reading. There was no loud music on in this cafe, so no real distractions. It wasn't too busy because I live in this sparsely populated area. And I think I must have done about 30 minutes worth of reading on autism. And the things that I was discovering about this particular trait were unfortunately triggering some negative memories from many years ago, that was the time when I was walking about with autism and had no idea that I had the autism. So I did manage to control it. I was just allowing those negative memories to just sit there. But then a short while later, in addition to that, it started creeping into my head. Things such as, don't forget you've got to do this job when you get home. Don't forget you've got to do that. And you've got to have this task completed by Saturday morning at the latest. And you've got to do some housework, that kind of thing. So other tasks started to creep into my head while I was doing this research. And my mind became noisy and busy. And then I started to feel this build-up of anxiety that was going on in my mind, but it was also building up in my body as well, because the mind directly affects the body. They're obviously, both connected. So I felt all of this anxiety building up in my mind and my body. And what happened was, because things were building and building, my mind then told me, I suppose unconsciously, look, just take a break. And I found myself diverting away from this research on autism, and I logged into chess.com because I play chess. Not so often anymore, but I still play it fairly regularly. And I decided to choose the middle option, which is, I think, up to a 15-minute game with someone on the other side of the world. And I think that chimes with something that a psychologist told me a few years ago, which is one of the brain's many jobs is to protect us. One of my brain's many jobs is to protect me, just like it is with you. And I think that my mind was trying to rescue me, if you know what I mean, by diverting away from this research I was doing that was triggering these memories that somehow allowed other thoughts to creep in on other jobs that I had to do and contribute to this sudden build-up of anxiety in my mind and body. So I started playing a game of chess, and I chose the middle option, which is one of these up to a 15-minute game. And the person that I was playing, whoever they were, they took quite a while to make their moves. So then my attention just went straight back onto my autism research, because I'd decided, well, if my opponent moves this rook or moves this pawn or whatever, I can do this. I'd already had a plan in my head. So I went straight back to the reading that I was doing on autism, spent a few minutes doing that, but then I found myself remembering, I'm on a time limit for this game, and I don't want to lose. I don't want my rating going down. I'd rather it didn't. I'd rather have enough time to make sensible moves in this chess game, because I focus on defense. And I found my mind was going research chess, research chess, research chess, and the fact that I'd engaged in another activity or task, that made me feel even more anxious. So I then, a short while later, I left the cafe. Oh, and also, before I left the cafe, because of this anxiousness that was building up, my cappuccino started to go cold, which that made me anxious, because it made me think, these things are expensive. I'm wasting my money because I don't want to be drinking a cold cappuccino, so that wound me up. And obviously I didn't shout or scream. I still behaved like an adult, but it was all becoming unpleasant on the inside. So I ended up having to ask the staff to heat up my cappuccino in some way, but it was embarrassing as well. I've not drunk this quick enough, can you reheat it for me? I just found it embarrassing. But anyway, I got home and I felt defeated. I felt guilty. I felt upset with myself. So then I felt tired because I did, I suppose, achieve a portion of my target that day. I did get a few things down on paper about this particular autism trait, but I could have done a much better job. So I then did some thinking a while later, and it suddenly popped into my head. I need to tell myself repeatedly to do one thing at once. So this is the idea I'm sharing with you all, and I'm sure that all of you experience anxiety from something in some way. So maybe a lot of you are like me, maybe not, I don't know. But I think if you do experience something similar to what I've just described, I think if you can repeat to yourself, even write this down, I've even written this down. Okay, I'm going to focus on one thing at once, and that's the rule. I'm going to think about one thing at once. Because if not, I think I could allow my mind to spiral out of control. I could allow my mind to spiral downwards out of control, and I'm going to feel that in my body. I'll probably end up with some kind of trembling going on, it's very unhealthy if that kind of thing is happening long term. So it's just a simple idea. This is currently working for me temporarily, and I think it's working for me long term as well, but it does need to be repeated. So I think we adults are fine. We can tell ourselves, you can even say it out loud, you can say it to yourself internally, inside your own mind. Regarding, I think adolescents can tell themselves as well. I think it's just that awareness, you've got the power to focus on one thing at once. You've got the ability to think about one thing at once. And it's a question of, I suppose, allowing yourself to do it as well. So I suppose it's getting your mind into a particular habit. Regarding children, because I was born with autism, so the autism's never going to go away, so there are people of all ages out there with autism. I think when it comes to children, I think these little kids, if anybody notices a little child seeming more and more anxious, more and more worried, more and more fearful or frustrated, because frustration and anger can come out of all of this anxiousness. I can feel frustrated and very annoyed, and it seems to come from anxiety. The anxiety triggers something, it can possibly move into something else, and we all react in different ways. So I think when it comes to children, I think they do need to be told by adults, okay, you look as though you're getting worried, frustrated, you look like you're getting anxious. You just focus on one thing at once, okay? So, that's better for your well-being, and something like that. I think that children do need to be told. Thinking back to when I was a child, this is assuming, if it was the Melanie who knew that she was autistic when she was a child, because I didn't suspect it until I was in my 30s. So, but assuming that I and people around me when I was a kid knew that I was autistic, I think I probably would have needed reminding, look, focus on one thing at once and think of one thing at once, possibly up to the age of maybe 15 or 16. But it's not necessarily going to be that age for other autistic kids. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, And it's, like I said, it's a very, very simple idea, but for me personally, this is working. But it does need to be repeated, yeah, because it can easily slip out of the mind when we get anxious and overwhelmed. So thank you for watching this. I'll see you in the next one.